Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site, covering the Arizona Cardinals and recording our second show of the week, our preview show, our preview picks and prediction show. My co-host, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. And Seth, it looks like that fans, a good chunk of fans, are going to get their wish, and the Cardinals are going to play the Colts without Kyler Murray, as Murray is currently dealing with a foot injury, hasn't practiced through 2 days. I mean, the things could change Friday, but signs are pointing towards a Brissett reunion start in Indy.
Yeah, it should be exciting. I mean, we all love a good backup quarterback, right? I mean, the last time the Cardinals had a decent backup quarterback, it was a gentleman named Drew Stanton. But other than that, it's been fine.
I mean, we could say that Colt McCoy was pretty all right.
Yeah, I mean, he did fine, I guess. But yeah, I mean, fans love the backup, right? Like that's how people like it, and that's what they like to do. So we'll see how this goes this week and what happens. But so far it's been middling and interesting to see the reactions and how much better the offense is going to be now. So I mean, we can expect some type of explosion this week, right?
I mean, sure. Let's consider this fact that the Colts are number 2 in points scored, number 4 in yards, and number 3 in points allowed. This is a beast of a game. The Colts are way better than anyone expected. And Daniel Jones is having himself a season. Number 3 in passing. Doesn't have like monster touchdown numbers. He got 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But you can add to that, he's rushed for 3 touchdowns himself. He has only been sacked 4 times, so he's leading the league with the lowest sack percentage. A guy who has been notorious for getting sacked. In fact, we'll talk about that fact, is the fact the Cardinals in 3 games against Daniel Jones has sacked him 17 times. Chandler Jones had 4 sacks against him. Hassan Reddick had 5 sacks against him. He's thrown 2 interceptions and fumbled 6 times against the Cardinals, but he is having a monster season so far. The leaving New York trend continues. Like getting out of New York and then remaking your career. Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, and now Daniel Jones, apparently. What do you see from this Colts offense so far, which is averaging nearly 33 points a game?
A lot of it just comes down to execution, finding the guy that fits what the offense wants to do. And then, like you said, there's a lot of times that it's just, guys that have that resurgence and fit into a scheme so much better than other guys. Shane Steichen, has had success in the past, obviously with the Eagles, but you look at it last year, they had Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco starting games. That didn't really work out. The year before that, they were 10th in scoring in the NFL, so not bad, but it was Gardner Minshew and Anthony Richardson starting games, and so that makes it really difficult to execute. And so sometimes it's finding the right guy and the right fit. You look at Steichen's offense, and they've always been good in yardage, right? I mean, you look at it, With the Chargers, he was 5th and 9th in points. With the Eagles, he was 8th and 1st in points, and then he got to Indy and it was 18th and 23rd. Sorry, it was yards, not points. Excuse me. And you're like, okay, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why is this offensive guru not guruing our offense? But just they didn't have the fit. They took a swing on Anthony Richardson. It's always the age-old question, right? Like, whose call was that? Was that Steichen's call? Was that a call made by the management? Like, how did that work out? That a guy that had never really had a lot of success in college, but had a lot of great physical attributes, get picked 4th overall in the NFL draft. That's maybe what was holding back Steichen the whole time. Because again, this year now they're 5th in yards. You mentioned it, 2nd in points. And again, we're barely a third of the way through the season, right? If this was to hold, this would be the best scoring offense, at least rankings wise, in Steichen's coaching career. The highest he ever got with the Eagles was 3rd. Being 2nd this year, obviously, is a little step up from that. So it's just, it's just interesting to see that it a lot about fit, right? Like something that we talk about all the time. A lot of it's just about the fit of the coach and the quarterback. And Daniel Jones has had flashes previously, but he'd never been able to really do anything for a long period of time. I mean, you look at his career, 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions as a rookie. Everybody was kind of like, okay, that's not bad. But then follows that up with 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, 10 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, wins the comeback player of the year, gets the Giants to the playoffs.
Yeah, he was really good that one year when Dable really limited things. He started using his legs more. He didn't turn the ball over. But other than that, he's been a turnover machine. He's Sam Darnold. He basically a different version of Sam Darnold.
Yeah, it was just a lot of turnovers. It was a lot of low percentage passing. I mean, in a league where 65% is now kind of average for completion percentage, he was 61, 62, 64, and even as last year in New York, he was 63%. A guy that had never thrown for over 3,200 yards in a season, but even this year, you look at it, I mean, a great start. And if I asked anybody, and I do mean anybody, how many touchdowns Daniel Jones has thrown for, and I told you he's thrown for the same amount of touchdowns as Kyler Murray, people would be like, no, there's no way. And so that's just it, right? Like the NFL is a lot of times a team game. And you and I have talked about this a number of times, right? There's, I say 3 to 5. I think I saw Luke McCown the other day say 5 to 7 elite quarterbacks. I would say 3 to 5, whatever.
Yeah, I would agree. If you want to push Justin Herbert into that category, you get to 5. After that, it's like we've said before, it comes down to what year is it? What year is it?
And so then you look at it, right? And then 6 to 20 are basically interchangeable.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're just like, oh, see who's at the top of the heap this year. And I guess technically we could put Daniel Jones at the top of that heap this year, right? Like
it's been really good.
But there's one thing this year, Jess, that's kind of stood out over everything else he's doing. And you brought it up when you talked about his games against the Cardinals. He's been sacked 4 times this year. So a guy that took a lot of sacks every again, on pace for 12 sacks in a season.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, and
Right.
that's really, 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 I guess, kind of the difference maker for him, because that Colts offensive line has protected him well. They've been healthy. Well, and then here's the other part to that we haven't even mentioned yet, is the fact that they have the NFL's leading rusher in Jonathan Taylor, 480 yards through 5 games, 6 touchdowns, 6 rushing touchdowns, leads the NFL. His 7 total touchdowns lead the NFL. He leads the NFL averaging 96 yards per game. And so it starts with Jonathan Taylor, because like Daniel Jones's passing numbers are gaudy, but you look at the individual receivers, like their leading receivers, their rookie tight end Tyler Warren, they're not getting massive production from one or two guys. And so you've got Tyler Warren at 307 receiving yards through 5 games. That over a 17-game season barely clears 1,000 yards. And what it looks like right now, because they got Michael Pittman at 273 rushing yards, and then a bunch of guys. You've got Alec Pierce with 171, Josh Downs with 175, Jonathan Taylor, who, remember, couldn't catch the ball. He's got 133 rushing yards, receiving yards, and so the targets are going all over. I do want to say one thing about the Colts, Savor, that maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of fool's gold in what they've done so far in terms of their schedule. They're 4-1, and they blew out the Dolphins. Dolphins are a bad team. They blew out the Titans, better than the Cardinals did. They're a bad team. They blew out the Raiders. Raiders are a bad team. Against the Broncos, they sneaked away with a 29-28 win. Now, I would say so that bodes well for them, because this fact that they could score 29 points on the Broncos. And then they lost 27-20 to the Rams who have a really good, who play at times like the best team in football and have a defense that can shut them down. They scored 20 on them. And so the two teams that you would consider competitive or solid teams, I think at this point we can firmly say that we're going to put the Broncos and the Rams both a notch above the Cardinals. But both those games were 1-point win and a loss, which means what they have done so far is the Colts have feasted on lesser opponents, which is what the Cardinals were supposed to do, but haven't.
Yeah, and that's really what it is, right? I mean, you mentioned it. The teams they've beat, and this is taking nothing away from them because they're doing it at a better rate than the Cardinals are, obviously. The teams that they've beat have 3 wins combined, and the Raiders, the Titans, we obviously know, the Raiders, and then the Broncos. We can say that the Broncos was a good win, right? 3-2. They're up
just
in
beat the Eagles.
Yeah, but they're also the the Broncos are a very up and down team as well.
Yes, they
right?
are.
Like, they sneak one out against Tennessee, then they lose close ones to Indy and LA. They're kind of the Cardinals last year, right? Like, other than beating Philly, like they beat teams they're supposed to beat and then lose close ones to the teams that are good. And so that's what that's about. But we've talked about the Philly situation too. I don't know if they're actually good this year, right? And so you look at it, what they're doing though is impressive in the sense of, they're second in points per game, they're third in points against. They're a top 4 team or top 5 team in yards, and they're a top 15 teams in yards against. And that's something that you and I talked about when it came to the Arizona Cardinals, and I saw a lot of people kind of lamenting some things on the internets about, the 4th ranked scoring defense in the NFL. I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of fool's gold, right? Like, they're 21st in yards given up this year. Like, they don't get a lot of stops.
No, they do.
They hold teams to field goals or they get leads and then end up giving up, like we've talked about, these nickel and dime 10, 12 play drives for 80 plus yards late in games that teams, it's feast or famine. It's either, they score a touchdown or they turn it over on downs. And it's worked to a point. And the difference with that is when you're playing against a team like the Colts, they're decent in not allowing yards. The one game that they got kind of shredded was against the Los Angeles Rams. They didn't defend very well against the Broncos either in that win, but that was again, an interesting game. And the other thing that they've done this year that we talk about all the time and how important things are is turnovers, right? So the Colts have 3 turnovers on the season.
And they were all against the Rams in their loss.
By the way, yeah, all against the team they lost to. Isn't that kind of like speak volumes, right? Like, and they forced 8 turnovers. The Cardinals aren't bad and they're not good. Like, they've turned the ball over 6 times. They forced 6 turnovers.
And we do have to note that one of their takeaways was a turnover off of a turnover, right?
Yeah. Well, also one of their takeaways resulted in a touchdown for the other team.
That is true. That is true. One of their takeaways turned into a touchdown for the other team, and one of their takeaways was not even the defense on the field. It was an interception that they fumbled back. Oh, yeah. But this has been a clown show for the Cardinals this year. Really, it has. It has been a whole bunch of unlikely things happening, and that's bad. That's bad.
So, we'll see how this all kind of comes to a head this week, because you have a team that's playing confidently at a high level, and then you have a team that's coming off what you and I described as probably the most embarrassing loss at least of the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And so it's really a juxtaposition of where teams are at. I guess the one good thing is that the Cardinals' 3 losses are by a combined 5 points. So that's not too bad, right?
No, I mean, that is, like, as bad as things are. They are to 2 NFC West teams that are competitive and the flukiest of fluke games you could ever have. And so, it feels like the vibes were very bad in Arizona. There are no good vibes here at all. But the record isn't as bad. The outcome isn't as bad as how things feel, at least. Now, a couple of things is that the Colts have a new kicker this week, is Spencer Schrader, who was leading the NFL in scoring and in field goals. He's 13 for 14 on field goals this season. He's out for the year. They signed Michael Badgley. Badgley, in his career against the Cardinals, has had one horrific game. And he was he was the kicker for the Colts in their last game against them in 2021 on that Christmas Day game. So it'll be Michael Badgley, a guy who was unemployed, which means good luck. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. That he might get hot like Chad Ryland did, or he might be an inconsistent mess. Defensively, they have 14 sacks through the first 5 games. They have, it's interesting, Latu, a guy that we liked coming out of the draft last year that the Cardinals passed on. He's not only got a sack, but a pair of interceptions. They've picked off 6 passes. Cameron Bynum, safety, is having himself a good year already. 2 interceptions so far. Kenny Moore returned 1 for a touchdown. But you've got 3 sacks from Tyquan Lewis, a couple from Samson Ebukam, a guy that we liked in terms of athleticism. You've got Leatu Latu with the sack, and they're getting it from, like, unlike the Cardinals, who all but 2 sacks come from Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell. Of the Colts' 14 sacks, come from 11 players combined. So they're getting it done from all over. It is much more of a team effort, and they've got good guys on the interior with Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner. You've got a really good linebacker in Zaire Franklin. You get solid edge presence, and Quiddipay, Taekwon Lewis having a good year. So they've got a very good rotation of edge rushers. And Lou Anarumo, who became, like, remember how the hot name that Lou Anarumo was? He was in line for the Cardinals job. He was doing great work in Cincinnati. And then when Cincinnati's defense turned to poop, he finds himself in Indianapolis with a team that is performing quite well defensively.
Yeah, and now we'll see how this all looks coming up and what the plan is, to really help this team get back on track, because the reality of the situation is that, you are at a crossroads just in terms of you can't go into the bye 2-5. Like, that's a death knell for a season. You need to steal a win in one of these games, and now with Jacoby Brissett, kind of slated to start. It's still Thursday. Kyler's missed both practices this week, so we have a feeling that Jacoby's slated to start, but we can't confirm that right. Like, it's not an official.
I believe Kyler's played without practicing before, but I'm not sure if that's been the case under Jonathan Gannon.
And so, you just look at it from that perspective, and this is one of those situations where it's easy to make an excuse for being 2-5 with these next 2 games.
but they can't. The season won't survive it.
The season won't survive it. And based on how you lost the last 3 games, you really have no room for excuses at this point, because as much as we can say they could be 5-0, they could be 0-5 as well. Like,
yes, they could, because it took Buda Baker and Jalen Thompson breaking up a pass in the end zone, and they almost lost that Panthers game in crazy fashion as well. So maybe crazy will go in their favor. Like, honestly, as we'll talk about, I think the only way the Cardinals can win this game if crazy happens in their direction. Ugh.
Yeah, that's always not a fun.
You have to bank on crazy. Coming up next on the Rise Up Series podcast, the of Cardinals talking about this. Move on and talk about the matchup specifically, the matchups, the keys, what the Cardinals need to do. How can they beat the Colts? That's coming up next on Rise Up Series. We're back on the Rise Up Series podcast, of Cardinals talk on the web. Keys and matchups that matter in this game against the Colts. I think obviously when you have the league's leading rusher, you have to limit him. Now, shut him down. I mean, the Cardinals did a pretty dang good job against Christian McCaffrey overall. That was one of Mac Wilson's best games that we've seen. But McCaffrey still ended up making plays when he needed to. So I think number one is that they need to keep Taylor's explosives away. Like, keep his gains to 2 to 5 yards and don't let him rip off the big runs, because he's as good as he is. Not only is he efficient, he is also explosive, and those plays will be what kind of takes the heart out of the Cardinals defense. And for the most part, defensively, they've been good in it. I saw this from Mina Kimes. They're number 1 in defensive EPA through the first 3 quarters and dropped to 27th in the 4th quarter. That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, and what people don't get about EPAs, it's not like simple things like how many plays they see or things like that. Like, it's a formula based on like expected points. And their expected points going up that much. People are like, oh, it's because they're on the field so much. It's like,
but they're not.
Right. They're on the field because they can't get off the field. Like they're not getting a stop. And that's something you and I have highlighted. I mean, the conversation, it is what it is at this point. But you mentioned stopping Jonathan Taylor, right? Think about this, Jess. In 3 games, Jonathan Taylor has had let's just call it, for easy math's sake, 200 yards in 3 games. I think it's like 207, but 200 yards in 3 games. And then in 2 games, he's got 267 yards rushing. So the thing with Jonathan Taylor is exactly what you said. If you're keeping him in his long run range in that 20 yards, right? Like his longest run of the day is 20 yards. You're containing him for the most part. I mean, the 3 games, 3.9, 4.5, 3.9 yards.
And his long for those games were 12, 15, and 16. His 2 big games, his 200-yard plus ones, he had a 46 against Tennessee, and he had a 68 against Denver.
Yeah. But it also corresponds to receiving. I mean, against Tennessee, they didn't need him in that way, but you look at it, he had 2 catches for 50 yards against Denver. One of those catches was for 43 yards, like, and a touchdown. Like that's what you need to stop. Like you cannot have, like you said, you can't have explosive plays for this guy, because when he does, their offense, that's when their offense is at its best, because then they're able to go play action. Then they're able, I mean, Shane Steichen isn't a direct, relation to Drew Petzing, but they have similar offensive philosophies and usages, and that's why they needed Tyler Warren so bad for this offense to really start to take off. Because you mentioned it, it's not like they're just airing the ball out all over the field to a bunch of wide receivers, right? Tyler Warren's their guy, in a similar vein to how Trey McBride's the Cardinals guy. So it's an offense that's based on getting the ball to,
and they are throwing the ball relatively a lot, but that's because they have the ball a lot. Daniel Jones is averaging 30 30 pass attempts a game, but when you are number 4 in yards, that means you are on the field a lot, and they average 6.8 plays per drive. And so yeah, they've been very good. Just overall, they've been really good.
Yeah, and so that's one thing. The second thing is you again, you mentioned it, but how do you slow down a pass rush that comes from everywhere, right? I mean, we talked about it, 14 sacks on the season. I think, what did you say, 7 different guys have sacks?
11 different guys.
11 different guys. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, we've talked about it, 10 sacks from 4 guys. Don't get me wrong, we appreciate Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell. It's good, but that's not great. And I see people hyping up like, oh, look at the pressures. It's like,
how are those pressures impacting the passing game? But they are terrible against the pass,
right? And so, that's one of the things that we'll have to watch, because you mentioned it. They're not doing a great job getting after the passer. They're not doing a great job of creating negative plays, especially late in games. So it'll be interesting. You and I've talked about it. You talked about getting off the field, how important that is. The time of possession, the Cardinals have a 23-second time of possession advantage. The problem is the drive, the number of plays, the opposition runs a half a play more per game, or per drive, excuse me, and then averages 4 yards more per. Like, that's what the issue becomes. it's not about the EPA in the sense of like, oh, they can't, they're not getting stops or this or that. It's that the death by 1,000 cuts is it's legitimate with this group. And it is, as a fan, right? Like, oh man, it's tough to watch sometimes because you're like, this is dreadful, man.
And then they will always, it's death by 1,000 cuts. They're like, don't give anything. But every game in the fourth quarter, there is a big play that happens in a critical series that you're keeping them to short, and then you get up a 38 to Jackson Smith and Jigba. You give up a 45 to Calvin Ridley. You give something up to Ricky Pearsall or whoever it is. It's Juwan Johnson. They're not only are they not good about getting off the field, they're also giving up big plays in bad moments.
Yeah, and we talked about the Calvin Ridley, fourth quarter, how bad that was. It must have been from exhaustion because they just played so much, and must have been so exhausted that they
had almost equal number of snaps in that game offensively and defensively. It's like, they were gassed. No, they're not gassed. The only reason they're gassed is because they're not coming off of the field because the offense is playing just as much. The offense is playing just as much. It's just they're not getting off the field. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I think one of the key things is going to be if you can force kicks, put the pressure on Michael Badgley because Schrader's been automatic this year. Badgley's going to be with a new battery of specialists, and then it's going to be interesting. How do they limit or how do they keep Tyler Warren from moving the chains? I want to see. I want to see this week for the Cardinals. What's the play? Can we get Will Hernandez in there for a full game? And is Evan Brown going to be back in the lineup? And if Evan Brown is back in the lineup, does that mean that Will Hernandez has officially replaced Isaiah Adams? Or because what was really unfortunate for I know he was on a snap count, was I would have liked him to have rotated like they've done with their guards before. But he played 23 snaps, and maybe that was all they wanted to play. And he got him in the first 3 series, didn't come in again. It would have, had he played 2 series, one off, one on, one off, one on. And that way you get some impact, because the difference between when he was in the game and when he wasn't in the game was stark. And when you've got the defensive interior guys that the Colts have, you need a healthy Evan Brown and you need Will Hernandez in, because you've got DeForest Buckner, you've got Grover Stewart, you've got Neville Gallimore. They have some good guys in that interior, and we desperately need that the offensive line interior to be better than they've been, and it looked about as good as we've seen them when Will was in the game.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's their strength, and we can pick on Isaiah Adams as much as we want, but the reality is he's been a disappointment this year, and that's putting it mildly.
Evan's been worse. Yelda's been worse, and Isaiah Adams has been far from good.
Yeah, and so it just makes it difficult. And we've talked about the running game. The reality is that Tyler's your best runner, and now he's out, and so you got to lean on the guy and Michael Carter, who is averaging 2.7 yards per carry, and Emari DeMarcado, who has one good run, and his other 6 carries are for 19 yards, or 18 yards, excuse me. And so, he's averaging 3 yards a carry outside of his 71-yard fumble run. And so those are all, it's been a devastating year for the run game. And so you mentioned it, when you talk about the Colts and what they've done this year, their run defense is slightly above average. It's not bad. It's not good. Their yards per attempt allowed is 4.5. So again, they're not exactly killing it in the stopping the run department. But the Cardinals are being killed in being able to run the ball. And now you have no Kyler Murray to help with the run game. You have obviously no James Conner. You have no Trey Benson. And the guys that have replaced them have been mostly terrible, if not completely terrible. And that's not a shot at Carter and DeMercado. That's just the reality. So, that is a matchup to watch, because if you go into this game and you're saying like, hey, Jacoby, we need you to win us a game, you probably already lost, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jacoby Brissett's record as a starter is 19-34, and while he has an NFL record low 1.6% interception percentage, he also has 31 career touchdowns. I've got to pull that up. I was just citing that to you. He has 53 career touchdown passes in 89 games. Now, a lot of those are, but he's 53 touchdown passes and he has 53 starts. I know some of those touchdown passes have come in relief, stepping in. He has 1.4% interception rate. He just doesn't produce passing touchdowns, and maybe the short passing game will be more effective. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of like when Colt McCoy was in the game in the Cliff Kingsbury days, and he get the ball out. But I get the feeling that if this game goes like it could, like Brissett is a guy who, if you are on schedule and playing with a tie or a lead, you can win a close game, but there's no way in the world he's going to be able to bring you back from down multiple scores.
Right, and that's just the reality. I mean, you look at his career, and again, it's nothing against Jacoby Brissett, but I mean, as a starter, it's been ugly. He's 19-34 as a starter overall. You mentioned it, 53 touchdowns to 24 interceptions in 53 starts. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's a consummate backup. Like, he's the ideal backup quarterback. And he's got 1 year where he was almost 500, 7-8 with these Indianapolis Colts, but that was a lifetime ago, basically in 2019. And since then, he's been basically that guy that you mentioned with those stats. I mean, a guy that takes care of the ball, doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, it's just, it hasn't been pretty, and it's sacked a lot because he's not a mobile guy by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, he was sacked 18 times in 5 games last year. Remember when he was with the Patriots last year, the goal, he entered that year as a starter, and the absolute goal was to have him to start as long as he could until Drake May was ready, and he was benched fairly quickly. He lasted 5 games, and here were the offensive totals for the Patriots in the 5 games that he started last year: 16 points, 23, 13, 10. He had, 2 touchdown passes in 5 games?
Right.
That's like he's going to have to be like, they're going to have to do more. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to have to do more. He's going to have to do more, because what he won't be able to do is to create out of nothing. Like, if pressure comes, he's going to have to get rid of the ball because he doesn't have the escapability that Kyler does.
Right. And so we'll see how this goes this week. But those are the matchups to watch. I guess the last one would be, Will Johnson against Michael Pittman, who's their top receiving threat. But we talked about it. It's really who's going to slow down Tyler Warren.
Yes.
And we don't know how they're going to combat that or who they're going to throw them. I'm assuming it'll be a cadre of guys, right? It'll be Akeem Davis-Gaither. It'll be Mac Wilson. It'll be Budda Baker. It'll be Jalen Thompson. It'll be Rabbit a little bit. Hell, you might even see, reps with Max or Will on him, right? Like, depending on the situation and where he aligns. So they have to slow down that. But the matchups are pretty straightforward, right? The Cardinals offensive line versus a stellar Colts front. And can the Cardinals find a way to keep Jonathan Taylor from making explosive plays?
Yeah. Coming up next on the Res of Seaward podcast, with our Cardinals talk on the web. Let's come back for our predictions, our picks, and some props that we can give you based on what we see in the sports books. That's coming up next on Res of Seaward. We're back on the Rise of Seaward podcast, with our Cardinals talk on the web. Final segment of the show where we move to make our predictions, our picks, and to talk about the props that would be worth making plays on. And my initial reaction, my gut reaction, is when the Cardinals gave the ball back, and I remember tweeting, they're going to lose this game on a last-second field goal, and then they're going to get smoked by the Colts. I don't know if it's going to be smoked, but it very well could be. I don't think this will be a super competitive game. I think the Cardinals are going to be playing from probably 10 points down most of the game. I'm going to say the Colts win this game 27-16. The Cardinals only get one touchdown, and the rest are field goals.
Yeah, I was going to say 27-13, so I'm right there with you. The interesting thing to me are a couple of the lines that we've seen. We talked about Jonathan Taylor. His line's actually reasonable at 89.5. By the way, everything's on BetMGM this week. FanDuel has nothing to offer as of this moment from player prop standpoints. So don't go there. The other thing is Jess and I are both on the under. It's right now on BetMGM, it's 47. On FanDuel, it's 46.5. So both on the under. Don't see this unless it's all Colts, right? Unless it's another 40-13.
It could be. It could be. It could end up being. It could be a 37-13 type game, and the line has actually moved a little bit more because it was a 6.5 point spread to start the week. It's pushed all the way to 7, and I think that's the Jacoby Brissett effect. But that extra point, that extra half point, that gives you the possibility of a push, because we kind of feel this is going to be at least a 1-score game. But if it can be at 6.5, you're like, oh yeah, definitely Colts. At 7, you're like, if it pushes to 7. So personally, I think the Colts easily cover this game.
Yeah, I agree.
That said, if you feel good about the Cardinals, playing better, coming back and responding, okay, you might take an alternate spread at +7, Cardinals +7.5 at -130. I wouldn't do it, but I can see why someone would, because they've lost 3 close games right in a row. Now, granted, with no Kyler, they're all locked in. They could pull an upset. I think they could pull an upset. But this Colts offense is too good, and the Cardinals are going to have to play an ugly game. Like we keep saying this, the Cardinals have to play an ugly game for this game to stay close. So if you think the Cardinals can be competitive, take that alternate spread +7.5. It's not great odds, but it's not terrible at -130. But yeah, I do like the under in this game simply because I don't think the Cardinals are going to. I think the Cardinals defensively will be okay, but I think more than anything, I think they're going to struggle offensively.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. I mean, they've struggled offensively anyways, and now they're downgrading at the quarterback position. Let me ask you about this line, or these rushing lines. Like I said, Jonathan Taylor's makes sense. 89.5. He's averaged 96 a game. Michael Carter's is 46.5. Am I missing something?
Well, didn't he have 51 in the game against the Titans? Let me see. I think he had 13 for 51. Yeah, he had 18 for 51 in that game. So he's getting though, but granted, that was also when they were playing from ahead. So they ran the ball a lot. 18 carries for Michael Carter is a lot. And so I guess what they are seeing is that he's going to get 15 carries, right?
But he's averaging less than 3 yards a carry. I'm not disagreeing, but I mean, his long on the season 7. He's averaging less than 3 yards a carry, and he's going up against a team that's going to play from ahead this week.
Yeah, I do like the. It's a longest rush. Never mind. I thought that was rushing attempts. If you're like 12.5 rushing attempts, yeah, take that one. Yeah, I do like Daniel Jones over 16.5. He's going to break free for a couple. I think like that for Daniel Jones over 16.5 rushing yards for minus 110. Do you like the over for Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, I would. I mean, 89.5. I think he's right around 100 yards. The question becomes, is it an effective 100 yards or is it a grind out 100 yards? If it's a grind out, then it's a good thing for the Cardinals, right? It's only bad if it's 100 yards on 12 carries or 100 plus yards on 20 carries, and he's in that 140 150 range that he's been a couple times.
If you're not sure about the rushing yards, just as you put the same money on the combined rushing and receiving yards, minus 115 for over 112.5. I think I'd lean for that one rather than just the rushing.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because that was the first thing I opened up, by the way, when I saw Michael Carter 64.5, and I was like, what?
although I did tell you guys to take over 2.5 receptions on Michael Carter last week, and that one cashed, guys. That one was good because he ended up what was it, 5 receptions in that game, because like he's a check down option. And Dortch just missed. I had over 2.5, although I can't remember if he had one at that point. Of like if he was over 1.5 or over 2.5, he finished with 2. So if you got him at 1.5, you cashed in that one. Now, Trey McBride 60. I don't know what to think about the receiving props for the Cardinals. Okay, I'll do this. Michael Carter over 14.5 receiving yards. I think that one's a lock.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But after that, I am not confident at all. Would you say? And we don't. Guess what? We don't have any good odds in this game. Oh, never mind. Kicking props, lock it in. Chad Ryland over 1.5 field goals made at plus 110. Take that 100%. Chad Ryland 2 field goals. That seems like that's easy plus money.
Exactly. That's where you feel like they're going to be able to get something done. Team touchdowns is an interesting one because the Cardinals' first half touchdown totals over a half, and that's minus 200. Do you think they score in the first half? Because if not, getting that at plus 154 could score a touchdown, I should say. Getting that at plus 154 is actually a decent value.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe that first drive will be scripted well. Like remember how the Cardinals, like for the first 2 seasons, were like, oh, they are money for a first drive touchdown, and then they went 8 games. Like last week was their first opening drive touchdown in half a season. Maybe it will look better because they'll have something different for Jacoby. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, right?
First, though, I like the Colts. I like the Colts first line first half spread at -4.5. I think that one's, I like that one. So Colts -4.5 first half spread.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. And this is a tough game overall to look at. I the other one, when you look at it, that is interesting is you can get both teams to score 3 or more points in the first quarter is +120. So like you said, if they come out, they have a good script, they could potentially get on the board. And I don't know if they're necessarily going to have a lot of success stopping this Colts team. So getting them 3 or more, I wouldn't go 7 or more. Because again, I don't know if touchdowns are going to be a thing this game, right? but that could be an interesting one to look at.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other picks that you see? I mean, I'm looking at the pass. Let's look at the passing props for Daniel Jones, obviously, because we don't have anything for that. Do we want Daniel Jones? Shoot. Over 200, it's over 1.5 touchdown passes, 135. I think that's do we want to go with the even money under 1.5 touchdown passes
for
Daniel Jones?
Yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting one because they might be able to just run the ball so effectively.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
And then if you think, because Daniel Jones has thrown 2 interceptions in 3 games, and the Cardinals, he's only got 2 picks this year, and they both came against the Rams. But if you think the Cardinals can force that 1 turnover, over half an interception is also plus money at +125. So that's something you might want to consider there.
I don't use this one enough. They don't have defensive props, do they, on this?
They will late in the week. They just don't have any right now. They don't have any.
I was going to say, if you can get sack props for the Colts, I would definitely take some.
Yeah. Yes, do that. Jacoby Brissett will get sacked 4 times probably. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
And with that, that'll wrap up this edition of the Rise of Sierra podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk, episode 708. I don't know if I will have a 3rd episode. I haven't been able. I got initial contact with the Colts guy from Locked On Colts, but I haven't heard back from him after the initial thing. So maybe we'll have a 3rd show, maybe not. If not, you've got our show. That'll take care of that. That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, Rise up, see red.